Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, we get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. China has defended Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un's attendance of China's Grand Military Parade in Beijing. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said that China's development of diplomatic relations with any country is never directed against any third party. The defense came after US President Donald Trump accused President Xi Jinping, Putin and Kim of conspiring against America. Russian President Vladimir Putin also responded with humor to the recent conspiracy accusation made by US President Donald Trump. Putin acknowledged Trump's well-known sense of humor and their first-name basis relationship. He further added that even during the Alaska summit, no one expressed any negative judgments about the current US administration, whether informally or formally. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he is ready to meet Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Moscow, but questioned whether such talks would be productive. Speaking in China, Putin reiterated that any meeting must be carefully prepared and yield concrete results. He added that progress would require Ukraine to lift martial law, hold elections, and conduct a referendum on territorial issues. US President Donald Trump has warned that the country might have to unwind its trade deal. He said the move shall be considered if US administration loses a Supreme Court's case on tariffs. Trump's statement came after an appeals court ruled on August 29 that many of Trump's tariffs were illegal. The president added that he would wait for the apex court's review. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral talks with his Singapore counterpart Lawrence Wong on Thursday. Both the leaders met at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi welcomed Wong on his first visit to India after becoming the Prime Minister. They jointly inaugurated the JN Port PSA Mumbai Terminal Phase 2 and signed 4 key pacts in the fields of digital technology, semiconductors, health cooperation and skill development. Scuffle broke out between protesters and police in Jerusalem during a large rally outside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence. Several protesters also marched near the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, demanding an end to the war against Hamas in Gaza and the release of remaining Israeli hostages. Prime Minister Netanyahu condemned the protesters and said they were like fascist militia. He also accused them of threatening him and his family. Thailand is all set for a vote to elect new Prime Minister after royal officials rejected the acting Thai Prime Minister's request to dissolve the parliament. The Thai royal officials cited disputed legal issues after the acting Prime Minister's authority to take such a step. Earlier, Thailand's constitutional court sacked Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra after a leaked phone call scandal with former Cambodian leader Hun Sen. The court ruled the sacked Prime Minister harmed national interest and violated ethical standards. Lisbon's historic Gloria funicular derailed and crashed, killing at least 17 people and injuring over 21. Emergency teams pulled survivors from the wreckage as police began an investigation. Authorities said foreign nationals were among the victims. The Gloria line, operating since 1885, carries nearly 3 million passengers annually. Portugal's president expressed condolences and urged a swift inquiry into the cause of the deadly crash. Clashes erupted at a campaign event for Argentine President Javier Milei in Buenos Aires ahead of Sunday's midterm elections. The rally ended with fistfights and projectiles thrown, reflecting growing tensions as Milei faces public anger over austerity measures and a corruption scandal involving his family. Despite the unrest, Milei left the scene unharmed. On to climate news now. In India, the Weather Office issued alerts for Delhi and the National Capital Region, warning of more rain on Thursday. This comes after heavy downpours lashed Delhi NCR for the third straight day on Wednesday, pushing this year's seasonal rainfall beyond 1,000 millimeters. The annual average of 774 millimeters had already been surpassed in August. Meanwhile, the Yamuna River rose above the 207-meter mark. This is the 5th time since 1963. Residents in northwestern Mexico prepared for Hurricane Lorena. The Category 1 storm brought heavy rain and winds of over 130 kilometers per hour along the coast of Baja California Sur. Forecasters warn it could make landfall on Thursday night at the northern tip of the state. Meanwhile, businesses in La Paz closed and locals placed sandbags to block floodwaters. Mexico regularly faces cyclones each year between May and November. Wildfire continues to wreak havoc in parts of California. A historic gold rush town lay in ruins on Wednesday after lightning storms sparked more than 20 wildfires on September 2. Flames tore through the Chinese camp, destroying 19th century buildings and homes. Officials said at least 12,000 acres had already been scorched by 22 separate blazes, burning about 100 miles east of San Francisco. Meanwhile, hundreds of firefighters battled the flames amid gusty winds and difficult terrain. Lebanon is facing one of its worst water crises in decades. Lake Karakoum, the country's largest reservoir, has plunged to historic lows amid extreme drought. Inflows dropped to just 45 million cubic meters compared to an average of 350 million. At the same time, wastewater from at least 69 towns is being discharged into the reservoir, worsening pollution. Environmental experts warn the combination of drought and contamination poses a grave threat to public health, food security, and energy production in Lebanon. British oil giant Shell has abandoned construction of a major biofuel plant in the Netherlands. The Rotterdam project was meant to produce sustainable aviation fuel and diesel from waste. However, Shell said weak market conditions and high costs made it uncompetitive. According to reports, Shell and rival BP have been rolling back climate goals while prioritizing oil and gas profits, a move that has fueled backlash from environmental activists. The factory, first announced in 2021, had been built as one of Europe's largest biofuel projects. On to business and tech news now. Stock markets in Asia moved higher earlier today as dovish comments from US Federal Reserve officials soothed investor nerves at a time of heightened concerns over global growth. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 1.2%, but China's Shanghai Composite dropped 1.6%. Meanwhile, Australian shares were also up 0.8%. On Wednesday, Federal Reserve officials expressed support for rate cuts in coming months. Indian benchmark indices are trading higher today as investor sentiment improved after the GST Council, headed by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, announced the biggest overhaul of the 8-year indirect tax regime. Most sectoral indices opened green, with auto and FMCG stocks rising the most. The US dollar was steady earlier today in a volatile week as investors were contending with bond market jitters and weak labor data. Traders were pricing in at a 97% chance of a Fed rate cut this month, up from 89% a week earlier, with 139 basis points of easing expected by the end of next year. The euro was holding at $1.16, while sterling stood at $1.34, and the yen was last at 148.16 per dollar, while the dollar index was flat at 98.22. Exchange operator Nasdaq has proposed stricter listing standards, including a higher minimum public float for certain new listings and a faster process to suspend and delist thinly traded companies. Nasdaq said in a statement that it would require companies primarily operating in China to raise a minimum of $25 million in public offering proceeds to qualify for listing, reviving a threshold it previously applied to issuers from restrictive markets. Nippon Steel said it had resolved all legal disputes with the United Steel Workers Union and steelmaker Cleveland-Cliffs linked to its $15 billion acquisition of US Steel. The settlement included the dismissal of a lawsuit against union president and the withdrawal of an unfair labor practice charge filled with National Labor Relations Board. Nippon confirmed no financial compensation was involved and said the parties were now focused on operations and collective bargaining. The Trump administration said it was very troubled by the decision of Norway's $2 trillion wealth fund to divest from U.S. construction equipment maker Caterpillar. The fund, the world's largest, announced last week it had sold its stake over the use of Caterpillar products by Israeli authorities in Gaza and the West Bank. The US State Department confirmed it was engaging directly with the Norwegian government on the issue, while Senator Lindsey Graham suggested possible retaliatory tariffs and visa restrictions. American Eagle Outfitters projected its third quarter sales above market expectations, signaling a demand boost in the fall season from its Sydney Sweeney and Travis Kelce partnerships. Meanwhile, the apparel retailer said it was also expecting up to $50 million in tariff costs later this year. This came after the company pulled its annual sales and profit projections for this year in May. US oil and gas company ExxonMobil is reportedly seeking to offload its European chemical plants in the UK and Belgium, as the sector reels from the impact of US tariffs and competition from China. A recent report said the US energy producer has held early-stage discussions with advisors in recent weeks on possible sales, which could fetch up to $1 billion. A US federal jury said the Alphabet's Google must pay $425 million in fine for invading users' privacy by continuing to collect data from millions of users who had switched off a tracking feature in their Google account. Separately, the tech giant was imposed with a $380 million fine by a French watchdog for failing to abide by rules on internet cookies. US President Donald Trump will host 24 high-profile tech and business leaders for an inaugural event in the White House's renovated Rose Garden today. The invitees for the event include Meta founder Mark Zuckerberg, Apple CEO Tim Cook, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, and OpenAI founder Sam Altman. The meeting is expected to be held over dinner after a separate White House event on artificial intelligence hosted by First Lady Melania Trump. On to some sports news now, and we begin with updates from the US Open. Italian player Jannik Sinner delivered a stunning victory while defeating Lorenzo Musetti 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 in the quarter-final. Sinner is set to face Felix Auger-Aliassime next in the semi-finals. In a shocking stunner, Amanda Anisimova ousted second seed Iga Swiatek 6-4, 6-3. The American tennis player has now entered her first US Open semi-final. The victory marked her revenge for one of the most brutal defeats in Grand Slam history. She suffered a devastating 6-0, 6-0 loss to Swiatek in the Wimbledon final earlier this year. American tennis player Jessica Pegula is set to take on Aryna Sabalenka in the US Open semi-finals today. The 31-year-old American earlier defeated Barbora Krejcikova 6-3, 6-3. Pegula and Sabalenka too faced off against each other last year in the final in New York, with Sabalenka defeating Pegula. Now moving on to cricket. Royal Challengers Bengaluru icon Virat Kohli has broken his silence on the June stampede in Bengaluru, which left 11 people dead. He paid tribute to the victims and their families. In an emotional message, Kohli extended his support and said that we will move forward with care, respect and responsibility. Indian Probe Agency Enforcement Directorate has summoned Shikhar Dhawan. The summons pertained to an alleged illegal betting app-linked money laundering case. Earlier, the central agency had questioned former cricketer Suresh Raina. FIFA has announced dynamic pricing for the first phase of ticket selling for the 2026 World Cup. This means that the fans will pay for seats according to the market demand, while the prices will start from $60. The Visa pre-sale draw from 1 million tickets is set to start from September 10 and will go on till 19th. India's winning run at the Asia Cup has come to an end as the team were halted to a 2-all draw by South Korea in Super 4. In a rain-affected game, India gave away the lead in 12th minute and started trailing in the 14th minute. The team was salvaged by a draw in the 54th minute. Ferrari will honour legend Niki Lauda at Monza this week. The Italian Grand Prix will mark 50 years since his first title with the team in 1975. This as the team is still hunting for its first win of the season. Lewis Hamilton will line up at Monza for the first time in Ferrari colours, but with a grade of penalty. According to reports, Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund Mumtalakat and Abu Dhabi's CYVN Holdings have taken full ownership of McLaren Racing. The deal reportedly valued the reigning Formula One champions at over $4 billion. However, McLaren Group has not given any financial details. The group has only confirmed the purchase of all its shares. And Spanish cycling championship race ended without a winner at its 11th edition was disrupted by pro-Palestine protests near the finish line. The protesters opposed the inclusion of an Israeli tech team. The race was halted with 10 kilometers left over safety concerns. And now updates from the world of showbiz. In a bizarre new South Park episode, Satan reveals he is pregnant with Donald Trump's baby, while the town's kids spiral into Labubu toy mania. The episode sees Jesus Christ, now the school counselor, clueless about the craze until a TikTok Labubu unboxing. Video fills him in. Meanwhile, the chaos of Satan carrying Trump's child adds the show's trademark shock value. The episode is part of season 27, which continues the series' long-standing reputation for outrageous satire. Paris Jackson, the daughter of Michael Jackson, publicly refuted Coleman Domingo's claim that she was helpful in the making of the upcoming biopic of her father. Taking to Instagram stories, Paris clarified she had no involvement and only once read an early draft, which she criticized as dishonest. She added, and I quote, "When they didn't address it, I moved on with my life. Not my monkey, not my circus." End quote. Domingo, who plays Joe Jackson, previously told a media outlet that Paris and her brother Prince supported the film, but the outlet has since updated its report to move his statement. James Gunn has announced the official title and release date for the highly anticipated Superman sequel. Superman, Man of Tomorrow will hit theaters on July 9, 2027, with David Cornsweet returning in the red cape. Gunn teased fans with an image of Superman facing Lex Luthor in his iconic war suit, hinting that Luthor will battle the hero directly this time. The sequel follows Gunn's first Superman film, where Luthor's clone plan to defeat the Man of Steel failed. Lady Gaga postponed her Miami stop of the Mayhem Ball tour just minutes before curtain, citing several vocal strain. Posting on Instagram, Gaga said doctors and her vocal coach warned that performing could cause lasting damage. She admitted it was a hard and agonizing decision, but emphasized protecting her voice for the long term. The singer apologized to fans, promising to reschedule the concert for a later date. And the last of our star, Bella Ramsey, has been immortalized in wax at Madame Tussauds, London. The actor's figure, created with Ramsey's input, recreates their standout green undercover suit from the show's season 2 premiere. Displayed in the awards party zone alongside stars like Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet, the waxwork includes Ramsey's signature rings and boots. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gushin Galan and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.